we have Ben Tuck, who is product marketing manager at Precisely. Welcome, Ben.
Hi, thanks for having me. Let me just get this screen share going and share this. And then let's get these slides into presenter mode.
You're all
Cool.
set.
Good to go. Awesome. Hi, so thanks for having me on this afternoon. I'm Ben Tuck. I'm a product marketing manager here at Precisely. Excited to be here with you today. And today I'm going to show you how to provide AI with the context that it needs to make informed decisions and to avoid hallucinations, especially when location data is really integral to that context. So before I dive into the demo, I just want to kind of frame the challenge facing enterprise organizations today. And broadly, there's a lot of obstacles to having AI ready data, but the one I want to focus in on the most is incomplete data. So organizations have a lot of first party data, but that doesn't necessarily provide the full perspective that they need to solve for their most important use cases. And in many cases, if you're using just your internal data to fuel AI and to have it automate specific processes and workflows, it's going to hallucinate to fill in the gaps. And so this can be a real struggle, especially if you're missing key location data that's tied to the real world. So things like risk factors in an area, or drive time, or proximity, or potentially consumer behavior or demand in specific areas. And so when you have these gaps in your perspective in the underlying data and the underlying context that the model is able to reason with, then you're left with missed opportunities and avoidable risks to your business. Additionally, folks run into issues with time to value. So struggling to integrate and onboard this external data that they need to provide AI with that context and close that data completeness gap, and struggling to get that integrated in their systems in a reasonable time frame. So uh, in many cases, that can lead to AI operating on still incomplete data, or in many cases, outdated data. Um, and these issues are really critical to solve for, because there are tons of core business functionalities and core processes that really depend on having that complete perspective, that full picture of a location, and that full underlying context necessary. So if AI is being tasked with questions like, where are my customers? Where should I be expanding my business? What physical locations look best? Where might there be risk? What do I need to know about a specific property? And it doesn't have that sort of essential location context underlying its decision making, then best case, you are going to get no answer, and worst case, you're going to get one that's just completely fabricated and hallucinated. So closing this gap is really essential, and it really goes beyond just appending latitude and longitude. You need to be able to provide AI with a full view of things like what businesses are in the area and what's specific to that location. What is this place and what is it about, is a really sort of concise way to think about it. Um, and so the challenge is really, how do you provide AI with that data, with that location specific context in a timely and efficient manner? Because I think, as we're all largely aware, most popular AI tools and systems don't natively work well with spatial data. And so you really don't want to find yourself in a situation where you need to learn GIS, or you need to stitch together a bunch of different disparate data using spatial queries that might be very process intensive, and then still need to find a way to make that interpretable for your AI system. So that's why we created Precisely's MCP server. It connects to our hundreds of data enrichment datasets and our spatial analytics and location intelligence services. And what it enables you to do is ask questions in simple natural language and have the MCP server call our location intelligence and data APIs, and then pull back the appropriate context in a way that your AI systems can intuitively understand and reason with. So it's really able to solve that issue of, in the first place, not having that data completeness and not having that location specific context, but then also the difficulties that might be associated with bringing that data through and making it usable and interpretable in your day-to-day AI workflows. So I'm now going to jump over here to Claude, and right now I'm just in the connector screen here just to highlight some of the services that are pulled through the Precisely MCP server. So we can see things like geocoding and address autocomplete and verification services, as well as being able to bring in data on different risk factors. So wildfire risk, earth risk, historical weather, as well as things like demographics and information about neighborhoods, parcels, buildings, and so on. So there's a really complete set of data and location intelligence services that are available through the MCP server. And you do not have to understand our API architecture. It's all just going to be available here in whatever AI system of your choice. And the MCP server does have uh, model agnostic model agnostic design. So I'm using Claude Desktop for this demo, but you could use whatever works best for you. So to demonstrate this, I'm just going to get started here and show that the web search is not on and just ask it to geocode an address. So let's say that I just want to learn more about this specific address. And this is actually in New York, although I'm not going to specify it. I'm going to leave it very incomplete here. And we see that we're able to return the latitude and longitude, the full address line, and the autocomplete kicked in and recognized that this was a New York address, as well as some additional details. And if I click in here, I can see what services were being evoked to do this geocoding function for me. And if I come into this geocode line, I can see what transpired. And also, if I scroll down enough here, I can get to this PB key. So this is a precisely ID, and it's a unique and persistent identifier that we append to addressable locations. And what that does is it makes it really easy to connect just raw address data that an enterprise might have with a whole network of connected data. So all the data that I was talking about earlier with demographics and parcels and buildings, this is an ID that is going to be persistent for this location and enable us to have all of that data connected and available and pre-linked for you to use. So to get a little bit more complex with what we're doing here, beyond just asking it for that geocode, I'm actually going to come over here into this project view. And in this case, I'm going to be asking it to create a site selection report. So if I come over here into these instructions, this is basically a system prompt for Claude, and it's going to ask it to be a lead audience and site strategist. And here I'm going to define the core objective. So I'm going to be asking it to essentially analyze this address for advertiser fit and purchasing power in the area and audience, being able to have the right audience in place for that. And so here I can also define just everything that I want in that report, what data I want to pull through, how I want it to be formatted, and all the ways I want it to be visualized. And the idea is that this just becomes a really repeatable process that can really streamline this workflow across your organization and can be used for different users as well. And so here I've also appended a consumer spend CSV. And so this is standing in this case for an organization's first party data. So this is giving me more insight into things like household spend and audience and visitation trends that I might have if I was doing this use case and trying to stand up the site selection report in actuality. And so I'm not going to spend the time on having it process. I have done this in the past. You just simply prompt it with natural language again to generate a report for the address that we looked at before. And it's given me that same level of detail that we looked at in the previous geocoding example, but I can see more things that are relevant to this site selection use case. So here it's pulling through things like traffic and the audience in the area and spending in retail nearby, as well as what it thinks the best advertiser fit's going to be. And on the right-hand side here, I can see that it fully generated the report for me in Claude, which previously would have taken tons of time and effort to pull in all of that location-specific context, make sure I have all of that data in place, and then present it in a way that is really easily understood by business users and stakeholders in my organization that I might need to share this information with. So you can see this fully built out site selection report here that I'm able to really easily disseminate across my organization. I could share this as a PDF, or I could stand this up as maybe say like a lightweight web app and just be able to look at the data that way. So with the MCP server, able to just pull through all of the data that was missing, that context layer for my AI to be able to operate on this use case and have it all available to me in Claude with simple natural language. So really shortening that time to value issue and filling in that data completeness. So I'm gonna pop back over here to the slides and bear with me while I get us back into something better to look at in presenter's view here. Um, so that example that I just walked through, both with just the simple geocoding as well as putting together a site selection report, might not be the use case that you would want to employ this for, but being able to pull in all of this data and all of these spatial analytics processes and inform your AI models with it, really applicable across a broad swath of industries and a broad swath of use cases. So, really, whatever you're imagining or whatever your ideal use case is, going to be able to fill in the gaps in your perspective, that data layer that you need for context to avoid those hallucinations, whether you're doing maybe fraud analytics in financial services or underwriting and insurance or network planning and telecommunications. You're able to bring in property details, demographics, boundaries, audience information, details about properties, parcels, addresses, places, street information, and then have all of that data available in a way that your AI can easily consume. So, really powerful across use cases. And briefly, just want to talk a little bit more about what sets Precisely apart. So, we have, again, a very extensive global data portfolio. The data sets are already pre-linked to accelerate your ability to onboard and just start working with and using that data. We talked about the Precisely ID earlier, and that extends across a number of other IDs, including things like building IDs and parcel IDs. The deployment options are flexible to your needs and your environment. So maybe you don't want to bring in this data through an MCP server and feed it into an AI model. You'd rather just get this on premises as a flat file. That's an option as well. And then the interconnectivity between our addressing solutions as well as our data enrichment solutions, being able to fill in that context layer and have a really streamlined integration between just a raw list of addresses that your business might have with a whole host of different attributes and contextual factors that can be appended to that data. And then lastly, just the connectivity beyond our own data that we offer. So we recently launched a program called Data Link that brings together data from a bunch of leading providers and pre-links it ahead of time upstream so that you're not spending a bunch of time figuring out how to match up and how to join records from, say, a Dun and Bradstreet with data that we're offering it precisely, and then back to your own internal records. So if you're working with any of the partners in this program, you're able to connect seamlessly to all Precisely's data and vice versa. So a really streamlined process of going from just your raw internal data to having this full and complete picture and being able to make that really easily understood by whatever AI tools or whatever AI workflows you want to implement that in. So I believe that's going to do it for me. The MCP server is available for free, and I will drop the link to the GitHub repository for it in the chat. You're just going to need a key and a secret from Precisely, which you can get in our developer portal. And again, I'll be dropping a link there as well. So, and the developer portal as well has an AI assistant if you need help looking through any of the setup steps there, or if you just want to explore what's available in our APIs. So, with that, thank you very much. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I'll be sure to get back to you in the chat.